It was supposed to be just another night, a quiet dinner, an anonymous table, and a simple steak that would remind him of the days when life wasn't made of marble walls and golden ceilings. But as Aaron Vale sat alone in the dimly lit corner of a small-town restaurant, dressed in a plain jacket instead of a $1,000 suit, he didn't know his entire life was about to change. Not because of the meal, but because of a handwritten note slipped across the table by a trembling young waitress. If you believe in kindness, humility, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes, where true stories of compassion remind us what humanity still means. Aaron Vale was the kind of man the world rarely saw smile. Once a hungry college student from the wrong side of Chicago, he had clawed his way up the corporate mountain, one deal, one sleepless night at a time, until he stood at the top, the founder of Vale Hotels, a global empire of luxury and glass. But behind his billions and flawless image lived a man who hadn't known peace in years. His success had cost him more than sleep, it had cost him love. 3 years ago, he'd lost his wife, Evelyn, to cancer. And though the world mourned with headlines and sympathy, Aaron knew the truth: he hadn't been there. He had been chasing contracts, ribbon cuttings, and board meetings while she quietly faded away. He had never forgiven himself for the way she smiled through her pain when he called from another city. For the way she whispered, "It's okay, Aaron. Just come home when you can." She never asked again after that. When she was gone, the world seemed to lose its color. Money meant nothing. Applause felt hollow. So, once every few months, Aaron disappeared. No entourage, no limousine, no suits or cameras, just himself, an old sedan, and a small town where nobody knew his name. He told himself it was to breathe again, to feel ordinary. But deep down, he was searching for something he couldn't name. That night, rain slicked the streets of a little town called Maplewood. Its neon signs flickered against the fog, and the world seemed smaller, quieter, almost forgiving. Aaron drove until he saw a modest place tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore, a restaurant called the Iron Skillet. The paint on the windows was chipped, the sign buzzed faintly, and inside, the air was warm with the smell of butter and grilled meat. It wasn't elegance, it was comfort. The kind that reminded him of Sunday dinners long before fortune found him. He took a seat by the window, where the cold glass fogged with the breath of the storm. Around him, people laughed too loud, forks clinked against plates, and someone played an old country tune on the radio. For a moment, he almost felt human again. Then a voice broke through the hum, soft, careful. "What can I get you, sir?" He looked up. The waitress was young, maybe 23, with tired eyes that didn't match her age. Her name tag read Mara. Her shirt was crisp, her apron neatly tied, but her shoes looked like they'd walked too many miles. There was something about her smile, fragile, practiced, that told him she'd learned to wear it even when it hurt. He ordered a ribeye, medium rare, and a glass of water. She nodded with a quiet politeness and hurried back toward the kitchen. As he watched her limp slightly down the aisle, a pang of memory hit him. Evelyn had walked like that in her final months, each step measured, determined to hide the pain. Mara moved the same way, pretending nothing was wrong. Aaron turned away, telling himself not to care. He'd spent years building walls to protect himself from empathy, from feeling. But as she passed his table again, balancing plates and smiling at a family nearby, he couldn't help but notice her eyes flicking toward her phone, her expression tightening for just a second. A message, perhaps, bad news, the kind that steals the air from your lungs. When she returned with his meal, she set the plate down carefully. Her hands trembled just slightly, enough for him to notice. He wanted to ask if she was okay, but the words stayed trapped behind pride and habit. He simply nodded his thanks, and she forced another tired smile before walking away. Halfway through the meal, Aaron realized he wasn't tasting a thing. The steak was perfect, buttery and rich, but his thoughts were tangled around the young waitress. Around her quiet desperation. Around Evelyn's last words, which still haunted his dreams. "Don't forget to be kind, Aaron." When Mara came back with the check, something was different in her eyes, a flicker of fear, or maybe courage fighting its way through. She placed the bill on the table, hesitated, and then, almost imperceptibly, slid a folded piece of paper beneath it. Her voice trembled. "Thank you," she whispered, then turned and walked quickly toward the kitchen, her hands clenched tight at her sides. Aaron frowned, unfolding the paper. The handwriting was uneven, rushed, the kind written in desperation. Greater than if you're not who I think you are, I'm sorry. But please, if there's any way you can help, my little brother needs surgery tomorrow. They're going to cancel it because I can't pay the rest of the bill. I've tried everything. I'll lose him. Please forgive me for asking. Mara. Aaron sat still, the words cutting through him like cold wind. Not because of the request itself, he had seen thousands of letters like it, but because it wasn't written to a corporation or a stranger. It was written to him, from someone who had looked him in the eye while holding back tears. Someone who didn't know he could buy the hospital itself if he wanted. He folded the note carefully, his chest tight. For a moment, the old, jaded voice in his head told him to ignore it. You can't save everyone. But another voice, softer, older, whispered Evelyn's words again. Don't forget to be kind. He rose quietly, left enough cash to cover the meal, and walked out into the mist. The rain had stopped, leaving the world smelling of wet earth and hope. For a long moment, he stood under the streetlight, watching the restaurant through the window. Mara was still working, wiping tables, her exhaustion hidden behind that brave, broken smile. Aaron didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car outside his hotel, the note open beside him. Around dawn, he made a call. The next morning, the staff at Maplewood General Hospital stared in disbelief as a sleek black car pulled up to the entrance. A man in a gray coat stepped out, carrying a small folder. He walked straight to the billing desk and spoke softly, everything on Mara Lane's brother's account is cleared. Current and future expenses, all covered. Before anyone could ask his name, he handed over a card with only one word embossed on it, friend. Then he was gone. Later that afternoon, Mara arrived at the hospital after her shift, breathless, terrified, expecting the worst. But when she rushed to her brother's room, she found him sitting up, laughing with a nurse, a stuffed bear in his lap. The surgery had been a success. The nurse handed Mara a small envelope left by a visitor. Inside was a handwritten note on elegant stationery. Greater than Mara, you reminded me what it means to see someone's pain and not look away. Thank you for helping me remember who I am. A friend. Mara pressed the note to her heart and wept. Not from sadness, but from a kind of gratitude that words could never reach. That night, high above the city, Aaron Vale stood. By the window of his penthouse, the lights of a billion-dollar empire glowing beneath him. But for the first time in years, the view didn't feel empty. He thought of Mara's trembling hands, her brother's laughter, and Evelyn's voice in his memory, telling him that real wealth was never about the buildings he built, it was about the lives he touched. Weeks later, the iron skillet received an anonymous investment that repaired its roof, doubled the staff's pay, and replaced the flickering sign outside. Nobody knew who the benefactor was. But every now and then, a man in a gray coat would pass by the window, pause for a moment, and smile when Mara turned to wave, as if they shared a secret only kindness could keep. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple into something life-changing, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Vibes, where stories like this remind us that compassion still lives among us.